December 2019. The world was preparing for a new decade, unaware of the changes the coming year would bring. And somewhere in the depths of space, far beyond the orbit of Mars, a fragment of ancient ice and dust was slowly approaching the Sun, an object that would soon stir the minds of astronomers and sky enthusiasts worldwide. On December 20th, the automated ATLAS system, the Asteroid Terrestrial Impact Last Alert System, developed in Hawaii to track hazardous asteroids, detected a faint, almost indistinguishable point of light. It was moving slowly but steadily, and its behavior left no doubt. It was a new long-period comet designated C2019Y4 Atlas. For professionals, discovering comets is routine, but in this case something seemed special. Right. Orbital calculations showed that the comet was approaching the Sun on a trajectory similar to that of the famous Great Comet of 1844. This suggested that Atlas could be its fragment, part of the same ancient body that had once split apart in the depths of space. The first weeks of observations confirmed it. The new comet's brightness was increasing much faster than expected. If this trend continued, by spring 2020, Atlas could become one of the brightest comets in decades, perhaps even visible to the naked eye during the day. Astronomy forums buzzed. The media began cautiously writing about a possible great comet, and enthusiasts around the world took out their telescopes to capture the first images of the new celestial wanderer. Against the backdrop of the calm winter sky, a feeling of rare anticipation was born, the kind people feel only when nature promises to show something truly great. Several weeks passed after the discovery. Each new observation of comet C2019Y4 Atlas brought more and more excitement. Its brightness was increasing rapidly, faster than most known comets. Astronomers watched with bated breath. If this rate of brightening continued, by the end of spring 2020, it could shine so brightly that it would be visible even during the day. For many, it became a symbol of hope, a rare natural wonder promising to adorn the sky at a time when humanity was just beginning to face the unknown threat of a pandemic. Forums and science blogs discussed possible scenarios, from the comet of the century to a second Hale-Bopp. Telescopes recorded the rapid increase in luminosity, and images taken by amateur astronomers began spreading across the internet. However, the nature of comets is fickle. In mid-March, astronomers noticed that Atlas's brightness had suddenly stopped increasing. On the contrary, it had begun to decrease slightly. This was the first alarming sign. When scientists tried to calculate the outgassing dynamics, it became clear the ice comprising the nucleus had begun to disintegrate under the influence of solar heat. By early April, images from major observatories showed that the nucleus was no longer intact. The comet was breaking apart, and then came the confirmation everyone had feared. In famous photographs taken by the Hubble Space Telescope, Atlas's nucleus appeared not as a bright point, but as a scattering of separate fragments, strewn along its orbit as if someone had carefully poured stardust onto the velvet of space. Each piece was gradually losing material, and the once promising comet was literally vanishing before our eyes. For the media, which had recently been writing about a great celestial show, the story quickly lost interest. Headlines shifted to a news of earthly anxieties, and the name Atlas dissolved into the flow of events. But for those who had followed it from the beginning, it was like a silent tragedy. It was as if a miracle had died before their eyes, without ever being born, a tiny, icy wanderer that had promised to illuminate the sky, but burned up on its way to the dream. Spring 2020. While the world lived in the anxiety and silence of quarantines, space maintained its eternal rhythm, and suddenly, a new discovery. In early April, the SWAN instrument, Solar Wind Anisotropes, on board the Soho Space Observatory, detected a strange bright region in celestial ultraviolet images. Against the backdrop of calm interplanetary space, a tiny dot had appeared, a comet designated C2020F8, SWAN. The SWAN instrument isn't designed to hunt for comets. It observes the distribution of hydrogen evaporating from Earth's atmosphere and other bodies. But it was precisely this capability that allowed it to accidentally notice a powerful hydrogen outflow, the result of active ice evaporation from the surface of a new comet. In essence, it revealed itself, sending its own trail of light into space. Calculations showed that by May 2020, the comet would pass relatively close to the Sun, and if its activity continued, it could become visible to the naked eye. For astronomers disappointed by the recent disintegration of Atlas, this discovery was a new ray of hope. A small but bright comet might still gift the world the celestial show everyone had been waiting for. Initial observations from the southern hemisphere confirmed it. SWAN was indeed increasing in brightness. Astronomers from Australia and New Zealand reported an impressive bluish-green glow from the coma and a noticeable tail, stretching several degrees. Photographs taken in April showed an elegant arc of dust and gas, reaching into the depths of the starry sky. However, the hope was short-lived. As it approached perihelion, its closest point to the Sun, the comet began to lose brightness. Observations showed its activity had dropped sharply, and its tail had become faint and diffuse. By the time it became visible from the northern hemisphere, Comet SWAN had already practically faded, dissolving into the Sun's glare. For most people, it remained unnoticed, a brief flash in the celestial chronicle of 2020, but those who saw it remembered. It was like the breath of the cosmos, brief, fragile, beautiful. Comet SWAN didn't leave a bright mark in history, but it reminded us of a simple celestial law. Even the briefest phenomenon can be majestic if you manage to look at it in time. Just when it seemed that 2020 had brought humanity only anxiety and disappointment, the universe decided to remind us it is still beautiful. Replacing the vanished comets Atlas and SWAN came a new wanderer, one that truly justified the hopes of millions. In March 2020, the automated Neowise Space Observatory, formerly the WISE mission, repurposed to search for near-Earth objects, detected an unusual source of infrared radiation moving among the stars. This is how Comet C2020 F3, named Neowise, was discovered. A seemingly modest but fateful find. Initial data indicated the object was passing on an orbit far beyond Earth and moving along a long, nearly parabolic trajectory as it approached the Sun. Scientists immediately understood this comet was an infrequent visitor. Its journey around the Sun would take about 6,800 years. Calculations showed the comet would pass quite close to the Sun, at a distance of about 43 million kilometers, roughly a third of the distance from Earth to our star. This meant solar heat would awaken the nucleus's activity, forcing it to eject gas and dust, and thus a tail would appear. At first, it seemed Neowise would be just another faint comet, visible only through telescopes. But everything changed in June, when initial observations showed its brightness was increasing rapidly. In images captured from orbit, the comet already had two tails, a dust tail and an ion tail, glowing with soft golden and bluish hues. In early July 2020, Comet Neowise reached its perihelion, the point of closest approach to the Sun, and just a few days later it became visible to the naked eye. It was first observed in the dawn sky, low above the horizon, and then in the evening hours as it gradually rose higher. This became a global event that united the world. People confined to their homes due to the pandemic stepped onto balconies and rooftops to see this luminous arrow slicing through the sky. Social media filled with photographs, from simple smartphone snapshots to grand long-exposure panoramas. Comet Neowise became an unexpected symbol of hope, a silent reminder that despite everything, the universe continues its eternal dance of beauty. The comet had two distinct tails. The dust tail, broad and golden yellow, formed by tiny dust particles reflecting sunlight. The ion tail, thin and bluish, created by streams of charged particles carried by the solar wind. The nucleus was estimated to be about 5 kilometers in diameter, and its active surface was ejecting vast amounts of dust and gas. At its peak brightness, the comet reached a magnitude between +1 and +2, making it easily visible even in cities with moderate light pollution. Its path took it over the northern hemisphere, and residents of Europe, Asia, and America could observe it for nearly 3 weeks, a rare spectacle by modern standards. For science, Neowise was a genuine gift. NASA and ESA spacecraft, along with numerous ground-based observatories, studied its composition and structure, obtaining invaluable data about ancient material from the solar system. Infrared observations revealed that the nucleus contained organic compounds and frozen water, virtually unchanged since the planets formed. Scientists noted its resilience to solar heating was remarkable. Unlike Atlas and SWAN, Neowise did not disintegrate. On the contrary, it withstood its close passage and retained its brightness even after perihelion. This allowed researchers to study the evolution of cometary comas in real time and refine models of volatile substance evaporation. By the end of July, the comet gradually faded from view, heading back into the cold depths of the solar system. It will not return to the Sun until the year 8820, but its trace remains, not only in NASA's catalogues, but also in the memories of the millions who looked up at the sky and witnessed a living marvel. Comet Neowise became that rare celestial messenger that appeared at the darkest moment of human history and illuminated it with a quiet yet genuine light. When the summer wonder of Neowise had faded, it seemed the celestial season of 2020 had come to a close. But in the autumn, a familiar name reappeared on the astronomical stage: Atlas. The same automated project that had previously discovered the failed Great Comet C 2019Y4 once again gifted the world a find. This time it was a much more modest one, yet still noteworthy. Comet C 2220M3 Atlas was detected in June 2020 by the Atlas system of telescopes operating in Hawaii. Initial calculations showed the object was moving on an orbit close to Earth and would soon pass at a relatively small distance from our planet, about 50 million kilometers. Despite its modest size and faintness, astronomers immediately noted its stable brightness and resilience. This was not a new visitor from the distant outskirts of the solar system, but a periodic comet returning every 139 years. Its previous appearance likely occurred in the 19th century, and now it had returned once more to remind us of its existence. When autumn arrived, C 2020M3 found itself in the most favorable position for observation. In October and November, it passed near the famous constellation Orion, slowly moving against a backdrop of scattered stars. For observers, this was particularly beautiful. In one patch of sky, one could see Orion's bright belt, the Orion Nebula M42, and the faint greenish dot of the comet, glowing softly in a telescope or in long exposure photographs. Although it was difficult to see with the naked eye, its brightness never exceeded eighth magnitude. Photographers and amateur astronomers captured many impressive images. These revealed a coma of dust and gas, a slightly elongated tail, and a characteristic emerald hue associated with the emission of cyanogen and carbon compounds. For professional observers, Comet Atlas became an important target. It allowed them to refine orbital parameters, test the dynamics of its interaction with the solar wind, and study the physical properties of its stable nucleus. Following the catastrophic disintegration of its predecessor, C 2019Y4, the new Atlas demonstrated the opposite behavior: calm, stable, and predictable. Its modest yet confident return served as a reminder of the cyclical nature of celestial processes. Not every comet needs to be dazzling to be significant. Sometimes what matters is simply that it arrives on time, like the breathing of the solar system, measured and eternal. Comet C 2020M3 Atlas did not become a news sensation, but it left a noticeable mark in scientific catalogues and in the images of enthusiasts worldwide. It reminded us that even in the shadow of great celestial events, there is always room for a quiet miracle, accessible to those who never stop looking up. In early 2021, as the world had grown accustomed to anticipating rare celestial events, astronomers received another gift. A new visitor appeared in the morning sky, a comet destined to become the last major cosmic spectacle of the passing year. Its name was C 2021 A1 Leonard. It was discovered on January 3, 2021, by American astronomer Greg Leonard at the Mount Lemmon Observatory in Arizona. Initial calculations immediately showed its orbit was unusual. The comet was approaching the Sun on a long, elongated trajectory that would pass relatively close to Earth. Scientists quickly realized this was one of the solar system's oldest travelers, Its journey to us had taken approximately 35,000 years, and according to calculations, after its flyby past the Sun, it would leave our system forever. At first, the comet was barely visible even through large telescopes, a tiny faint point among countless stars. But with each passing day, it grew brighter. By November 2021, its green coma and thin ion tail had begun to stand out against the dawn. Sky photographers and amateur astronomers worldwide tracked its increasing brightness as if watching a living creature. Approaching the light December marked its moment of glory. Comet Leonard became visible even through binoculars, and then, just on the edge of naked-eye visibility. In photographs, it looked stunningly beautiful, a bright green sphere from which a long blue-white tail flowed, shimmering and bending under the influence of the solar wind. Observers called it the Christmas comet because on the eve of the winter holidays, it adorned the morning and evening skies like a celestial garland. Its behavior proved to be remarkably dynamic. Astronomers recorded outbursts in brightness, rapid changes in the tail shape, and even brief separations of dust fragments from the nucleus. In images taken from Earth and by spacecraft, the comet appeared alive, changing as if breathing. On December 12, 2021, it passed at its closest distance to Earth, about 35 million kilometers, and then headed toward the Sun, reaching perihelion in early January 2022. After that, its brightness began to decline rapidly. The comet swiftly vanished from view, as if melting away in the daylight. But even as it departed the inner solar system, its tail remained visible in images from space telescopes, stretched out for millions of kilometers. For science, C2021A1, Leonard, became an important object. It allowed the study of processes occurring in comets that are approaching the Sun for the first time in thousands of years. Its composition revealed high concentrations of carbon compounds, cyanogen and other volatile substances, a kind of scent of antiquity preserved from the era of planet formation. For observers, Comet Leonard became a symbol of the end of an era, the last bright comet of the decade to fly past Earth in the age of cameras, smartphones and live streams. Thousands of images captured it from different corners of the planet, over deserts, mountains, oceans and megacities. And wherever it was seen, the same feeling was palpable in every frame, pure wonder at the sky. It has left the solar system forever, becoming an interstellar wanderer, but its light remains in photographs, in memory, in the millions of eyes that during that winter looked up at least once and saw an ancient comet bidding farewell to the Sun. In early 2023, humanity once again looked up at the sky. After 2 quiet years on the celestial stage, a new heroine appeared, Comet C2022E3 ZTF. It was named after the Zwicky Transient Facility project at the Palomar Observatory in California. It was this telescope, designed to search for rapidly changing objects, that detected it in March 2022 as a faint green speck slowly moving among the stars. Initially, the discovery didn't cause much excitement. Dozens of such distant icy bodies are found every year, but orbital calculations revealed something interesting. The comet was approaching the Sun for the first time in 50,000 years. It was an ancient traveler, originating from the farthest outskirts of the solar system, the Oort cloud. That is, when it was last near Earth, Neanderthals still roamed the planet. As it approached the Sun, the comet began to awaken. By December 2022, it became clear that the nucleus was actively releasing gases, and a bright green coma was forming around it, a glow caused by the presence of diatomic carbon, which shines with an emerald hue under ultraviolet radiation. It was this color that made it famous. In January 2023, the observation wave began. Photographers around the world lined up under the starry sky at night to capture it in their frames. At first, it was visible only through telescopes, then through binoculars, and by the end of the month, it could be spotted with the naked eye as a faint greenish speck with a thin tail, moving between the constellations of Ursa Major and Auriga. On February 1, 2023, the comet passed at its closest distance to Earth, about 42 million kilometers. This period marked the peak of its visibility. The sky seemed to come alive on those nights, Thousands of observers shared images of the green comet shining over snowy mountains, forests and city lights. It looked mysterious, not like an ordinary comet with a long tail, but rather like a shimmering emerald in the cold darkness of space. Scientists carefully studied its composition and behavior. Photographs and spectra showed that the comet's tail split into two, one dust tail and one ion tail, stretched out by the solar wind. Subtle gas jets were observed around the nucleus, changing from night to night, creating the impression of a living breath. Comet C-2022-E3 ZTF became a perfect laboratory for studying the ancient material from which the solar system once formed. After February, its brightness began to decline. It rapidly moved away from the sun, losing its radiance but leaving behind millions of photographs and countless stories of people who looked at it and felt they were witnessing something that would not repeat. After all, this comet's next visit will occur when Earth is already a very different place. C-2022-E3 ZTF became a symbol of both transience and eternity. It arrived from the ancient darkness, illuminated the sky above 21st century humanity, and departed once more, back to where time itself comes from. Throughout this journey, from Comet Atlas to the mysterious Green Wanderer ZTF, we seem to have lived an entire era. Each of these comets became more than just a celestial body passing through the field of view of telescopes. It left a mark on human memory. Each appeared suddenly, flared up, gifted hope for a miracle, and vanished. A reminder that both in the universe and in our lives, everything passes, but nothing disappears without a trace. When we look at a comet, we don't just see a piece of ice and rock flying through the void. We see time, matter that was born even before Earth and the Sun, when the solar system was just forming from a cloud of dust. Every atom in these nuclei is a traveler from the distant past, holding within it the breath of the cosmic dawn, and when they approach the sun and begin to shine, it's as if memories of the beginning of everything momentarily come to life. Comet. Atlas showed how fragile beauty is and how quickly what seems eternal can crumble. SWAN reminded us that even a brief appearance can illuminate an entire sky. Neowise became a symbol of hope. It gave millions of people a sense of wonder when, in July 2020, a golden plume of light suddenly flared above earthly cities. Comet Atlas, C-2020-M3, restored faith in observations. Quietly passing in the autumn of that same year, it became a reminder that not every miracle needs to be loud. Leonard, the Christmas wanderer, arrived as a gift to the departing year, filling the sky with green-blue radiance, and the green ZTF became a link between the past and the future, a final greeting from an ancient epoch. Each of them is like a frame in a great film shot by the universe, and we are merely witnesses, fortunate enough to be the audience of this cosmic spectacle. But the story doesn't end somewhere right now. In the cold reaches of the Oort cloud, billions of similar comets lie dormant. Some of them are already moving towards us slowly, along their ancient orbits, and perhaps one of them will become the great comet of our time. Brighter than Neowise, closer than Leonard, as unforgettable as Hale-Bopp once was, astronomers are already awaiting a new guest, C-2023-A3 Tsuchinshan Atlas. According to calculations, it could become a true celestial spectacle if it withstands the sun's heat. In the autumn of 2024, it might illuminate the entire sky, leaving behind a tail millions of kilometers long. But even if it doesn't, the very act of waiting once again draws humanity a little closer to the sky. Comets have always been a mirror of time. They come from the past to glimpse our present for a moment and vanish into the future, and perhaps that is precisely why we so eagerly seek their gaze, catch their glimmer, and look up as if hoping to see not just a celestial body, but eternity itself. As long as they fly, it means the universe is still alive. As long as we watch them, it means our curiosity, our longing for the unknown, is also alive. Comets remind us that everything in the world moves in orbits, planets, stars, destinies, and like them, we too will one day vanish in a radiant glow, but our trace will remain. The light from the comets of the past is still flying through space. It is still on its way. And perhaps someone, somewhere far beyond our solar system, will see this light and think, over there, somewhere in another star system, someone also looked at the sky and dreamed.